Our next speaker this morning is from Vodafone, and he's here to tell us about the latest evolutions in mobility. So, ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Kevin Salvadori.
Thank you, Jamie, and good morning, everyone. For the three of you who don't yet have smartphones, I'll have a little lesson with you after the session if you'd like. And for those of you who might think it's Canadian morning, because I think I'm the fourth Canadian person in 6 speakers, I actually live in the UK full-time. My kids go to school here. I'm taking one of them to see cricket on Sunday. So despite my accent, you'll have to make do with that. So I'm here this morning to talk to you a little bit about evolutions in mobile. But I think you got a little bit of the sense of from Donovan's presentation on unified communications and where it's going, that maybe it would be really more appropriate to discuss evolution in communication as all of these things kind of crash together in this new communication world that we have. So what I'm going to talk about is 5 key trends that we see in communication and how those 5 key trends can impact your business or public sector if you're in the public sector. And those key trends are, first, next generation mobility or 4G. So we're in the advent of a very significant change in how we do mobile communication, really driven by faster speeds. The second major trend I'm going to talk about is fixed mobile convergence, how bringing together fixed and mobile services for consumers and enterprises in a seamless way really changes user experiences. Third, I'll talk about the Internet of Things. And this is one of the most fundamental changes. You know, the mobile industry is just over 30 years old. And we've spent the first 30 years figuring out how we can make humans, us, talk to other people, or text with other people, or chat with other people, or connect to the content we love. Well, I believe the next 30 years in mobile is about how the billions and billions of devices around us get connected to the internet. Fourth, I'm going to talk about cloud and the evolution of cloud, which ends up being a huge enabler for communication and mobility. And I'd like to think that really one of the fundamental things of cloud is now a 5-person startup company can have access to the same infrastructure and same tools at, frankly, in general, better economics than the largest corporations in the world. And last, as Michael discussed, there's this balance of security and privacy, but I will tell you that the world of the internet, and there's increasingly more and more threats every day, and we need to make sure our world is safe and secure in that environment. So let me first jump into next generation mobile and 4G. So what is 4G and why does it matter? Well, on 3G devices, generally an average user experience might be 1 meg to 6 or 7 megabits per second. On 4G, the first starts of 4G really changed that to 8 to 20 megabits per second. And most importantly, the responsiveness or latency that you get with 4G is much faster. And that really enables a very significant change because applications that previously you couldn't use in mobility are now instantly be able to be there. So, if I take a consumer example with us, we have a partnership with Sky Sports. And with our 4G services, you can get access to Sky Sports or Spotify streaming service. And the volume of take-up we've seen on people viewing on their smartphone, on their tablets, live sports has been phenomenal. And it's not just that, but whether it's BBC iPlayer or Netflix or YouTube, video is now almost 50% of our traffic on our network and will soon surpass 50%. And the average 4G user uses 4 times as much traffic as the 3G user before they switch. So it's an instant, very significant change for users. In the enterprise context, And we're doing trials in Germany where we have ambulances who have an EKG electrocardiogram for a patient that gets transmitted to a hospital as they're driving there, so the people in the hospital know how to treat the patient once they get to the hospital. You know, that's how we can use 4G to help improve patient outcomes as we move forward. But 4G has to come with coverage, and I think coverage is a very significant part of it, and particularly here in the UK. So within the UK, you know, Vodafone and another operator are rolling out 4G at a lower spectrum. And why is that important? Because lower spectrum, just like your voice, it travels farther. And we've committed publicly that we will cover 98% of the UK by 2016, including Wales. But I think this is something we jointly have to do together. We do not want the digital haves and have-nots in this new world, and 4G is critical to economic enablement. So we need to partner with you with things like planning permissions, being able to have taller masts. You know, I know, and I've seen out here, it is an absolutely beautiful countryside. But, you know, the fact is, Vodafone's masts in Spain are twice as high as the masts that we have in the UK, which average only 15 meters. And masts matter to coverage. So if we're going to close the rural digital divide in Wales, we need to have better planning permission and be able to put up taller masts. I think that's something that's worth giving people a digital future for that we can hopefully work on together. Now let me move to fixed mobile convergence. And this is, as I said, really about integrating both fixed services and mobile services and bringing together them in a single user experience. So the simplest, you know, and in a consumer context, you can think about this, you know, just how your life has changed over the last 5 years. You know, now it's so common to be at home, and whether you're watching Netflix or Apple TV or something on the big screen, and then the people on the couch might have their smartphone or tablet doing something else or watching something else because they're not that interested in what's going on. And that whole world is converged together. And you can be able to do things like pause on your live TV, and let's say you go out for your train commute and then just pick up your show wherever you left off right there and then. That's bringing those services together. In enterprise, it's kind of more fundamental, and I think Donovan did a good job of describing it earlier, but frankly, bringing everything together in one number so it's fixed and mobile, so you as a small business can be way more connected to your customers. We have lots of individual owner-operators who now don't lose a sale because it ended up in their voicemail on their landline, but gets directly connected to them. And that's just the start. When you integrate contacts and messaging and video conference available wherever you are, you can really help drive a significant change in the way your business works. The third significant trend is the Internet of Things. And there's projections, we have slightly fewer than 1 billion devices connected to the internet outside of phones or smartphones today. Forecasts for that, which are really just guesses, that within 5 years, that's going to be somewhere between 10 and 30 billion devices. Think about that. 10 to 30 billion from less than 1 today. So what are those things? So cars, every car is going to be connected. 50% of the cars manufactured in Europe go out the door with a Vodafone SIM in them today. And what do we do with those? Yes, we're starting with basic telematics, but it'll move quite far beyond that. Also smart meters. So every home in the UK within the next 10 years will have a smart meter, so you can manage your power and understand what's going on, which appliances use more than others. Many things in the home environment. The picture shows a security camera that you can view, but being able to control other various aspects of your home. So yes, your fridge will be connected to the internet and tell you when your milk is about to go bad or when you need something new, and that online retail example will show up at your door and it will tell you when your fridge isn't working properly. And then there'll be wearables. So, it starts with things like watches, and yeah, I'm a geek, so I get my text messages on my watch. But they know are already building clothing that will monitor your heart rate. Then Google Glasses are going to move to contact lenses so that you can not just be able to get the outward functionality, but it'll also monitor your things from a health perspective. You know, the evolutions in telemedicine and other things are just phenomenal. And it's really, as far as you can think of, what will be connected to the internet. Basically, anything that we can control, we can track, and we can manage or monitor will be connected to the internet. And to give you one example, I described BMW. And BMW uses it for basic telematics and emergency calling, but they've also used it as a way to upsell their clients. They now sell Spotify streaming radio over that. And then it's not just about the largest companies. We've worked with a small company called Clever Miles. And we have a little dongle that we put one of our SIMs in, and you can plug it into any car, and it tracks how you drive and what the telematics are your car. And they've worked with a number of insurance companies, and guess what? Insurance companies like to know how you drive your car. Okay, and so they know if you're doing sudden braking, if you're doing quick accelerations, and they rank you as a driver, and it helps them better look at risks. But they also figured out another purpose for it. You know, if you claim a certain type of injury when you're in an accident, okay, they can go look at the telematics from your car, and if you're trying to lie about that industry or have a fraud because of that injury, they will track that and see that. So that's a great example of how a small company can get right into what the Internet of Things is all about. The next is the evolution of cloud. And cloud is really bringing together, to me, infrastructure, whether it's storage or compute, in an environment where you don't have to shell out hard capital pounds to go buy a whole bunch of servers. You can now buy that or software on a pay-per-use basis. That fundamentally changes how we've done IT and computer science for the last 30 years. Why is that? Well, there's a biopharma company example I can give you. They wanted to do a simulation for a certain drug that they were planning on doing. They needed 100,000 computers to do this simulation. They figured that would cost them $40 million US, okay? They went and worked with a cloud provider, did the simulation over 2 days in the cloud environment, $38,000. Okay, 40 million, 38,000, fundamental change. So I think you as businesses, you really have to look, if your core purpose isn't necessarily IT, you can get things like, we supply an Office, Microsoft Office 365 product. So whether it's your Excel, your email, your PowerPoint, your connectivity, you can get that all in the cloud. You don't need an IT infrastructure in your workspace to work with. That's one example. But, particularly in the theme of today's conference, if you have not an idea, but a great customer need, and you have a team of 5 developers, you can go build products and services and be that next software company. WhatsApp, the $19 billion company that got sold with 50 people, was built on the cloud. Netflix, who you'd all would know and say is a great company, guess how much infrastructure they maintain internally? None. They run their entire business on Amazon's Web Services cloud. Last, being safe and secure. So the threats are increasing day over day. I mean, it seems like at least once a month there's a major global news story on how something has been compromised. So most recently it was eBay. eBay lost customer names, dates of birth, addresses, encrypted passwords because somebody hacked into their system. Okay. Otherwise, more recently, something that was trusted, a piece of open source software used by many websites, was found to have a vulnerability. Suddenly, 500,000 websites in the world had a vulnerability that could cause what was thought to be encrypted information be vulnerable. Okay, so the threats are real every day. Vodafone processes 60 billion network events a month looking for security attacks, and we get several attacks every day. And now they don't just target large companies. These are motivated more and more by commercial interests. They're not purely state-sponsored. State-sponsored is part of it, but they're a very significant commercial interest. So you need to know in your business, whether it's public sector or private, some key trends: identification and authorization or authentication. Are your customers or employees, do you know who they are when they're logging in? So as simple as that. Do you have good password rules? If it's important information, do they need a biometric or other token to get into your data and your network? Or, are you tracking them? More and more, everything that people do in a system when they're accessing data will be tracked and logged, so you can go make sure it was done for reputable purposes. Second, are you resilient? Or wherever you store your data, is it resilient? When people are applying attacks, we've grown up over the last security for the last 10 years on perimeter defenses. So is it appropriately protected from things like denial of service attacks? But more and more, we're seeing insider threats. So can you track where your data is moving? And data is accessible on any device. So when we have all these devices around, how is your data managed? And third, how is your data going to be protected? Is it protected from loss? If somebody loses their device, do you still have the data somewhere? And over time, I think we're seeing I predict within the next 10 years, all data, whether it's in a network or in a data center anywhere, will be stored in an encrypted format so that it's safe wherever it is. And when we launched our 4G networks, we made sure that the communication is encrypted from end to end, because it's really important that that data stays secure. Okay, so what are the implications for your business, or if you're in public sector, for the public sector? I think there's a few. So first, it's around speed and the data speeds that you're going to get. So looking at your business, you can now look at any function that you had within business and say, well, should we reinvent this process? Because we might be able to do it now in a mobile manner. And that can take costs out of our business. That can make us be more efficient. That can be better to customers. Or frankly, that may create a new whole business model entirely. So if we look at an example, in London. In London, when you want to hail a taxi now, you don't put your hand out. You pick out your smartphone and you press the halo button and a taxi comes to you. Okay, so in the span of 12 months, 18 months, what have they done? They've got an application on a phone that has your location, connects into the cab network, finds the closest cab to you, and the cab comes to you. And you can have an account, so you don't even have to have cash with you. Now you can't be a taxi driver in London and not be part of the Halo network. They fundamentally are changing businesses and how that works. Why? By taking advantage of what you can do with mobile data and speed, and in this case, one piece of key data, location. Then anytime, anywhere. So we now have a world where you can be connected anytime and anywhere. So we work with one customer who has a big field force, and they used to buy expensive, ruggedized notebooks that used to, frankly, sit in the truck most of the time. Now their field personnel can have an inexpensive tablet, be right on site, do all their processing of the job while they're there. If they need help, they have instant access to the company's entire knowledge base. And if they run into a problem, they can take a picture, send it to an expert, and even video conference with that expert. That's how they're reinventing their anytime processes in their world to make their business be better, more efficient. And then last, you need to look at your risk. I don't care how small your company is, you need to look and make sure that you manage risk and make sure, whether it's you yourselves or your service provider, are taking care of your data, making sure it's safe and secure from other people, and the people who access it have the appropriate authorizations. So in closing, I really want to challenge you to look and say, okay, how do you leverage these trends in looking at what you do every day, whether it's in public sector or private sector? To reinvent your business, perhaps like BMW did, to create a new business with something like Halo did. Because frankly, if you don't, I think businesses we're at this point of hyper-connectivity in the new world, and people will either create a new business, reinvent their business, or frankly, their business will be ruined over time because people will just move by you as we move on. And I think if you can take advantage of these trends, there's a huge opportunity for Wales holistically as we move forward on the digital agenda, and we're certainly really excited to be part of that. So that would be my challenge to all of you, to make sure you seize the opportunity that's been given by these new technologies. Thank you very much.